come early to get mic'd up. And she knows, so when she's done, you need to figure out seeing it? Ready to go? Do I have to wait? Good morning, boot camp. I started with Lady Gaga today because she's got so much to tell us in that song. And it's a great pivotal point to start our day on conversation. First, one of the moments, I don't know about you, I had to grab Kleenex when she turned to the flag. Now, anytime you'd heard that, did you ever have to grab Kleenex before that? You didn't. Why was that? It was the context it was put in. The flag was under siege. We were in this horrible place where democracy was being threatened. And here we saw our flag. And context is a big part of every conversation we have. So with that, and I thought that was a nice way to start today, we're going to talk about you being a conversational ninja. You are the architect of all of your results with how you converse, with what you say, and the context you say it in. So when I say that, think about what an architect does. They build. They make something happen. And I want to talk about our thoughts about our language and how we talk to people and how we talk to clients and how we talk to other agents and how we talk to our family, and see if we can't take it up a notch to get better results. So with that, listen, we all live in language all the time. Anybody else here have a little voice that goes on inside their head? Anybody here got a debate team? Right. Mark Twain once said, "I'm always in conversation. Sometimes other people are involved," right? And let's talk about that inner conversation. We have Lauren Holleran with us today, who's going to be talking about that in a little bit. Because there's a lot going on inside your head that determines your results. So with that, just remember, we do all live in language, and you have a lot of choices about how and what you say. And I want you to start to think about it and be a much better observer of those choices that you're making. So, definition of language. If I ask anybody in our huge studio audience of a few people and AV people, what is language? The most common answer every time is, it's a tool for communication. I want to suggest that that is totally inadequate. We just think we're communicating. I want to say that not only is it inadequate, it is not giving the due to what language does for us every day. So every day, language doesn't communicate, it creates and it generates. What do I mean by that? Nothing almost happens without language. Have you ever been in a position when you thought, I just don't know what to do? I'm going to suggest that what was really going on is you didn't know what to say, how to express yourself, how to make the next thing happen. Here's an interesting story. There's 3 umpires. One umpire says, I call balls and strikes. Another umpire says, I call them like I see them. The third umpire says, they're balls and strikes, but they ain't nothing until I call them. The language creates it, something, an action. And we want to talk about results and being way more effective with our language. And if that's the case, let's think about all the little nuances of what we're talking about. So I'm going to start with success is not what you say. So many of us get ready to call a client, to talk to a distressed buyer, to have that tough conversation with the attorney who is, sabotaging your deal. And we're so focused all the time on what we want to say. When in fact, unless you deliver it in a way that they understand what you want, you have not been successful. It's in the interpretation. It's not what you say. So I want you to think about language a little bit differently and how you're using that to be successful in context. So, hey, there's no guarantees in any conversation. Don't you wish that every time you wanted someone to do something and you had to talk about it, it happened? If I say, Ramsey, would you go out and mow the lawn? I might get my lawn mowed, but I wasn't very specific about it. And it might not happen exactly on time. And maybe he never even uses the weed whacker. And he doesn't do the little plot behind the garage. But I wasn't specific. So I'm going to get what I've asked for. He cut the lawn. He's happy. I'm totally dissatisfied. And we're going to talk a little bit about unmet expectations in a bit. So there are no guarantees in any language. And what can you do so you have the fewest regrets? That's the key thing. What can you do so you have the fewest regrets? So one of the problems is that we're wishy-washy. We are real estate agents and we want everyone to like us. And, and we allow people to be wishy-washy back. I would suggest that a lot of people are just spineless. And, the everyday example is, how many of you said to me, oh, I'm going to try to make it on the walk in the woods. I'm going to try to go to our Zoom dance party. That's totally wishy-washy. That is totally spineless. Are you letting clients get away with that? No, I'll try to call a painter and see if I can get that done. Yeah, I'll make an offer. I'll try. I'm not really serious about it. That is spineless. And if you are the architects of conversation that get results, you can't tolerate spineless, wishy-washy language. We all need some radical candor. And you need to be authentic. You need to be brutally honest with people, but you have to be so damn nice about it. You have to put it in an environment where people trust you and love you and respect you so that they will take the dose of medicine and have that hard conversation. So, anybody here ever have to have a really difficult conversation? The kind you dread, the one you put off, that you don't have for days, sometimes weeks? And then you have it and it turns out you didn't die? Right? These are the most important conversations. Why do we make the big bucks in real estate? Because we are responsible for having very difficult conversations. And I can tell you, if you look at earnings, it's going to go directly to people who are willing to say the tough things. People who want to be successful, whether it's agents in our company, whether it's your seller or your buyer, if they're ambitious about getting something done, they are actually open to criticism. They want to get better. Now, there are always going to be the extremes who aren't going to be rational or reasonable, but they are also not motivated if they're not willing to listen. So I'm going to suggest that there are ways to have really hard conversations with people, and that we need to learn to do that. For example, Dell. Dell, I have loved working with you. I so appreciate that you were willing to list your home with me. And it's been quite a journey. I know it's been on the market now for 3 months in this market. And I want to apologize because I love working with you, and I really respect what you're trying to get done, and I've been listening to everything you've been saying, but we're not selling. And I should have had this conversation sooner, but let me be real. I probably didn't have it because I didn't want to get fired. I was afraid that if I told you some of the things that I think that need to be said, you might hire someone else. And I'm in it for the long haul. I'm prepared to help you. But it's time we start to have the conversation that we haven't been having. You know, I want you to know, and then you would list all the things that were important to Dell. Why he needed way more money than the house was worth. Why he wouldn't, you know, potentially paint or allow for professional staging, or all the litany of things that have kept him from being successful. But if I put it in context, if I've been real with him and said, geez, I don't want to get fired, do you know what? Immediately, you've put something in their head, like he might not think about it, but now he's going to dismiss it. Or maybe you are on the chopping block and it's not a good relationship, and you should just know it right away where you stand. Mary, I have loved working with you for the last 17 months to find a house. You know, the great thing is that I have seen so much inventory. And by the way, I've sold a lot of houses that I might never have seen otherwise. I can't thank you enough. Love your kids. They're fun to be around. But at the end of the day, you're not finding your dream house. Now, I know we've made a lot of offers, but at the end, you know, you haven't bought anything yet. And I'm assuming you're frustrated. I'm assuming that maybe you think I'm not doing my job. And that concerns me. You know, it's time that we have a tough conversation, because I want to make sure you're really in this to buy a house, and you should know that I'm in it to make sure that happens. You know, but I haven't had that conversation because I know you know 4 other realtors. Your sister's a realtor and you're not using her. You know, so you got to be brave. But I think if I let Mary know how much I appreciate her, and that I'm personally nervous or worried or concerned, there's going to be a lot of grace and a lot of forgiveness that we need to integrate into this. Having those hard conversations, by the way, you still have to prep for them. You know, before I get on the phone with anyone, and there's almost a day that doesn't go by when I don't get to have a really tough conversation. Matter of fact, I have people come to me go, will you have that conversation? But it should always be done with love, care, concern. We mentioned last week, people want in their business relationships the same thing they want in their personal relationships. So they need to know you have their back. And that's, if you can signal that through every transaction, when they're not looking for that, when they know after you've negotiated and you're about to sign the offer form, and you can say, listen, I did everything I can. I think we didn't leave a dime on the table. I just wanted to let you know, I know you wanted this, we didn't get it, but I did get this, you know, let them know you've been thinking about them. You didn't even ask for that, but I managed to squeak that in for you. We got that closing date. You mentioned when we first started, you didn't make it part of this negotiation, but I went ahead and did it for you. You know, as long as people know you have your back, you're in great graces with everybody. So, commitments. I want to suggest that, you know, we've done entire seminars on time management, which, you know, I think is a bunch of hooey anyway. It's all about really managing and focusing your attention on the things that need to be done. But I read this and I thought this was great. We don't manage time. It's all really about managing our commitments. And by the way, if we've established from the beginning your commitments are things you've said you were going to do, remember right now, if I say, Lauren, are you available for lunch tomorrow? And she says yes, that whole tomorrow didn't exist with Lauren at lunch until I asked her, right? But at the same time, when you're trying to manage commitments, you need to make sure that all of the things that you're doing are going to happen, that you're using language so that the results you're getting. And let's talk about that in detail. So your goal is to get conversational commitment. And what do I mean by that? I mean, every time you need something done, you need to get one of 4 answers every time. And if you don't, someone's being wishy-washy or spineless. If I ask, are you willing to stage your property, Dell? You can say yes, you can say no, or you can commit to commit. You know what? Let me talk to Gary and I'll get back to you at 5 o'clock. Or you can give me a counter offer. No, I don't want a big staging company, but you also mentioned, Linda, that you have someone comes in that'll rearrange my furniture and help me declutter. That's a counter offer. Every single thing we need to do has to follow this pattern for things to be successful. That's key. And this is so fundamental and rudimentary that we're just thinking, I know that, but you're not doing it. If you're not getting people to sign a buyer's agreement with you, if you're afraid to get the listing contract signed until the day before it goes on the market because you just can't ask for it, you just assume they want to do that. And that happens all the time. I don't want to give them too much paperwork. I'll just, death by 1,000 cuts. I'll just send it out a little bit. Just send the whole thing out, get it over with, and move on. All right, next. So one of the things about commitments is that, hey, in real estate we have contracts. You get what's in the contract, you don't get what's not in the contract. That's how it works. But where we get in trouble with all of our clients is in that silent expectation, right? I thought you do open houses every week. We never discussed that. But if you've used our commission options and they've seen that and they've chosen X percent, we can't really discuss that here on Facebook Live, they've picked X percent, then they'll know that you're going to do a open house every 3 weeks. If they've chosen to pay you more, you're going to get every other week. At the top commission rate, they will get every week. But if you haven't done that, and they have expectations that you are going to do a life experience video of their house because you did it on that $3 million house you had, but you never discussed that with them because you never gave them the marketing plan in writing, then they're full of resentment. They're upset. It's because you didn't go through the process. Now, I think up on our hub today is all our brand new checklists and all of our updated letters. Everything is there for you, New Hampshire and Massachusetts, every checklist. I'm going to suggest that if you want results, if you want commitment, you're responsible for the communication to create the action, to get things done, and to set the expectations right. Because how easily are people offended because something didn't happen? And it was never promised. We walk around offended and outraged all the time because we have unmet expectations. So as I queue up to put Lauren up, I'm going to talk about one last thing. Your mind and the conversations in your head, which I know she's going to go into a little bit deeper, are your explanations of events serving you? Every time something happens, you get caught in traffic, you have a co-broke yell at you, you have a very unreasonable client. You create a scenario in your head of why that's happening. And often it's very defensive, it's protective, and you're not owning the responsibility that maybe you did something wrong, because that's natural, that's human nature, to not blame yourself. And in the beginning, we talked about you have choices in your observations, in what you choose to think about, on how you choose to explain things, even to yourself. And I want you to think about the explanations you're giving to yourself. And the question then is, are your explanations giving you the outcomes you're looking for? And that might be just, is your real estate business where it needs to be? Are you full of excuses to yourself? Or are you taking responsibility and starting to do the things you need to do? We're going to talk about Boot Camp Bingo in a minute. So Lauren, I'm going to call you up, and while I introduce Lauren, Lauren is now a perennial boot camp speaker. We love to have Lauren in the audience. I love her brain, and if I can brag on Lauren for a second, Lauren sold $100 million worth of real estate in 2020. And she works for Gibson Sotheby's. I consider her a great friend, and let's hear what she has to share with us. Come on up, Lauren.
Thank you.
There you go, Lauren.
Thank
This
you.
way.
Okay, great. Is this working? Okay, great. Thanks. This here. Thanks, Linda. I'm grateful, as usual, for the opportunity to get to be here at boot camp with you guys. So nice to have some actual people here. I think this is a brilliant setup. I'm aware there are other people out there, but nice to have real people. So Linda and I went on a walk sometime in December. She said, oh, this is great. Let's go to the Fells. I grew up right here, and this is my backyard. I know it like the back of my hand. I spent my whole childhood running around the Fells. And so I said, great. And she said, I have a meeting at 10, so we'll walk for about 50 minutes, and this will be terrific. I said, okay, great. So we left at 9 and started walking and talking and talking and walking and talking some more. And well, it turned out she had no idea where we were. I mean, none. It took her a while to actually admit this. But then we saw some poor guy walking his dog, and she goes, excuse me, sir, do you know how to get back to such and such? And I thought, what are we doing? And I looked at my watch, and it was 9:50. We were meant to be back where we were. And she goes, we should be back in 45 minutes or so. And I thought, okay. And we kept going. How long was it? 2.5 hours? It was something, I think it was 2.5. It was meant to be a 50-minute walk. It was 2.5 hours. But anyway, that was where this started. And I love walking, and I love talking, and especially with Linda, where ideas sort of germinate and grow, and it's a lot of fun. So anyway, we were talking about her boot camp and conversations, and I was talking about some of the things that I was thinking about for 2021. We were wrapping up the year, and a lot of the conversations inside of my head about sort of how to evolve and how to get better in 2021. And probably like many of you, do you guys come up with like one word for the year? I like that, but I'm like not quite concise enough. So I usually have like a phrase, but it's something that I find motivating, and was talking about this for, oh, that's not it, for 2021. I was like, I think I'm such a procrastinator, and what I was starting to realize, this is really the thing in my business that gets me down the most and like filled with self-loathing and frustration, is my ability to procrastinate, which is legendary. And what I was starting to realize as I was thinking about it in December, and like, this is really what I want to focus on in 2021. I think it's about more than like tasks and time blocking, and I've gone to every seminar and read every book, and none of it works for me. And I said, I think it's really about discomfort. Like, there's something in these tasks that is uncomfortable for me. And I think the way I'm going to slay this dragon in 2021 is I'm going to seek discomfort. I'm not going to shy away from it. I'm an amazing avoider of things. But when I identify that something's uncomfortable and I'm going away from it, screw that. I'm going to seek it out. I'm going to go toward it. So this is where it started, was seek discomfort. This is my computer monitor at home, and my little thing goes right there every year. And around a few days into January, I was really thinking about this, and every morning I write a little bit. And I was like, you know what? I'm not a martyr. Like, I don't want to be uncomfortable. It didn't feel quite right, this whole idea of seeking discomfort. We just got through 2020. There was a lot of discomfort in that year. And so I thought, well, maybe it's not about seeking it out, but like when I encounter it, I'm going to embrace it. I'm going to be okay with it. And I'm not going to run away in the opposite direction. So I crossed out seek, and then it became embrace discomfort. And I thought, okay, this is great. Now when I identify something I need to do that I can tell I don't want to do it, I'm really just going to lean in. I'm going to do it. And a few days later, I was thinking, that doesn't feel quite right. And finally, I landed on what it is. But I want to discharge discomfort. When I identify discomfort, when I'm procrastinating, when I'm leaning away, it's not that I'm going to run toward it. It's that I've really got to figure out what's the discomfort and how do I undo its power. So that's the goal. The other one, if I have time, I'll talk about type 2 and type 3 fun, because that's fun. So whenever I'm thinking about making any changes, this is my dad, he's 80, and his name is Romer, and he has these Romer's rules of life and just things he's said over years and years and years, and he says the same things all the time. And one of the things he says is never fail to consider that maybe you're doing it just right. You know, when you're on the horns of a dilemma and trying to think about making a change, always leave in the hopper, in consideration, maybe you're doing it right. So as I was thinking about this, I thought, okay, maybe I'm doing it right. I have to consider that, right? So I was thinking about my typical day. Now, every morning, I take out a piece of paper and I write down some things. I blocked out this middle part because that comes later. But part of it is, what am I grateful for this year? Every day I'm writing what's uncomfortable, what's feeling uncomfortable right now. I write down sort of my general schedule for the day. And then I write down all the tasks that I really have to get done that day. And so on this day, Monday, January 11th, this was where I was. And then there's something I've started doing just recently in sort of a nod to my dad's sense of like, just look at what you're doing and maybe you're doing it right. So I thought, well, you know what? I'll write down at the end of the day everything I got done. I'll cross off the things on my list that I did. You can see I did one thing. I returned my son's shoes because he would kill me if I didn't. I did not call Bank of America. I didn't get this client's stuff I meant to send her. I didn't deposit the checks. I didn't work on 60 Stearns. I didn't do so many things, but I did. Those are the things I'd planned to do. But then throughout the day, I wrote down the things I did. So I actually got a lot done. It's just nothing that I intended to get done. So this helps with the self-loathing piece, because you're like, okay, I got some things done. And then the other thing that's fun that I started doing last year is write down all the people I communicate with individually daily, and then circle the ones who actually will lead to business. Either they're past clients I'm staying in touch with or current clients. And this is a real feel-good thing at the end of the day, because I think we don't realize how many people we talk to in a given day. And it just happens. We're all on the move, on the go, texting, calling, all of that. And so to really reflect at the end of the day or throughout the day how many people you're connecting with, I sort of think the positivity of that then keeps it going. But so I looked at this and I was like, I'm getting a lot done, but I think when I'm thinking about my dad, am I doing it, is it right what I'm doing? No, there are all these things I really need to be doing, so I can discount my dad's hypothesis. So my two things that I was sort of focused on in 2021 as evidence of my just pathological ability to procrastinate is my mail. This is 5 months of mail, having taken out junk mail assiduously every day, having thrown out the catalogs, I build a pile, not a single thing gets opened. I mean, it is so messed up. And there are checks in here, there are invoices, there are philanthropies I mean to donate to, and I have such a good intention. I look at it and I'm like, oh, right, Urban Improv, I want to support them, so I'll put it in the mail pile. And so I brought this. The reason I had a picture of this was because I sent it to a friend I had been complaining to and saying, you would not believe I have all this mail. And she was like, it can't be that bad. And I was going to Florida. This was February of last year. And so I brought all the mail because I was going to do it all there. And as I was putting it away to pack it for Florida, I took a picture of it and I sent it to her and I was like, see what I mean? And she was like, oh, this is so stressful. But then the hilarious thing is that I didn't do a piece of it in Florida, nothing. And it wasn't until December 20th when I was literally opening mail in December from November of 2019. And, you know, I got through it, but it was like a year and, 13 months late. So anyway, that's one thing I could improve on in my life. The other thing is like depositing checks. This is my desk this morning. You know that thing on my list? I was like, deposit the checks. These are all the smoke certificate reimbursements and, I don't know, expenses that I paid for. And there's some part of me that thinks it's like money in the bank. So I'm like, oh, that's great. I can't spend it if it's not in my bank account. Though it's here and I'll deposit it later. Like this makes no sense at all. Yeah, interest is maybe the thing. So this is something else, and it's like it fills me with just a deep sense of dread, and it's not a good feeling. I feel terrible about myself. I think, why can't I do these really simple, basic administrative things? And so 2 tangible examples of discomfort. So I'm not talking about like overcoming trauma or anything. These are very mundane things that I'm trying to address in my life. This is Tim Urban. We're going to see if this works. So if I want to find a certain spot, well, let's see if it works first of all. If it doesn't, that's okay. Oh, it is. Okay. So if I want to go to a certain spot in it, do you think I can do that here? I'm going to say, nope. All right. Well, in any case, I would encourage, many of you have probably seen it, but this is Tim Urban, who has the most amazing long-form blog, Wait But Why. And he has a TED Talk on procrastination that is phenomenal. So check that out if you haven't.
We'll post that in the Facebook group.
Oh, we'll post that in the Facebook group. Great. Well, there we go. Okay. But so what I realized in my sort of morning writing about like this discomfort is that the longer I delay, as time moves out, the negative emotional charge associated with the task just builds. So it's this very unfortunate vector that up here is where I wind up with mail and checks and lots of other things, but it just has this incredible negative charge associated with it. So how do I undo that? How do I discharge the discomfort? Now, this build is in all the wrong order, so I'm going to just get them all up here and then we'll talk about it. So I think I'm thinking through, like, I've done hard things in my life. I know I have. I've pulled all-nighters to get work done. I've climbed big mountains, all sorts of things that are uncomfortable. But so, like, what are the common things in those that allowed me to get difficult things done without a problem? And part of it is just getting rid of decision-making. So making a commitment to be here at 7:45, or as it turned out, 7:49, today, because I went to Wakefield first. There's no like wiggle room. Of course I have to be here. I've made a commitment to Linda, to you guys, so it happened somehow. As I was leaving the house this morning, I said to my wife, I was like, I really don't know what I'm gonna say. I've put some slides together, the builds aren't right. And she goes, well, something's gonna happen. That's exactly right, something's gonna happen, we'll see. But if you remove the decision-making, the thing has to happen, whether it's a commitment to a person. I love the example of doing a loop. If you're gonna go on a run, if you're gonna go on a hike, don't make it an out and back. The out and back, 25 minutes in, you're like, I'm feeling a little logy, and I'm gonna head back to the car. If you do a loop, no way, man. You can only, what was it Winston Churchill says? If you're going through hell, keep going. Like, there's nothing else to do. If you want to walk with Linda, you just have to keep walking. Especially when you can't find your way back. And then put it in the calendar. That's something that it's like a commitment to myself that I can fudge. But sometimes if it's really important, I'll put it in there. And then my rule with myself is if it's like a work block, like I'm going to deposit those checks, it has to get moved at very least. Like it can't get deleted. I could move it forever. So that's not a perfect system. one place I often get bogged down is in writing proposals for clients. I have like so much inside of me that I want to get out, and it just takes me a long time, and a lot of it is not time that I'm actually working. It's like the time that I'm procrastinating. And so in thinking through that example, this is something that's actually really helped me, feeling the feelings, like thinking as I am completely procrastinating, sitting down and doing this thing, I can take an inventory, like instead of spiraling into the self-loathing of like, why am I so terrible and can't get this done? Instead of that, being like, this is so, get curious, like, this is remarkable. I have this proposal that we're listing I really want. I have it in 2 days and I can't sit down. What is that about? And so I've taken this approach now, and where I sit and I notice sometimes really bad feelings come over me, and if I'm in a procrastination mode, the bad feeling comes and then it goes away because I go to like Wikipedia and read about something. Or the bad feeling is coming and I can feel it coming and I think, gosh, I'm hungry, I better go, it's lunchtime, I'll go make some lunch. Or it's coming and I think, I'm not getting any work done here, I'm gonna go to the office. There's always something, but so instead, let that bad feeling come and then just like sit and I think like, have your way with me. And it comes and I feel it, and it's sometimes, it's usually related to uncertainty. I don't know what I want to say, and that causes just me to go, look at Wikipedia, or there's a bad feeling like I am worried about being wrong. That's often it in pricing. I'm worried about disappointing the client. And these like negative emotions can cause me just to want to not do the thing. But when I sit and I let those feelings come, it's just remarkable. And I sort of think like, literally in my head, as the wave of discomfort comes about feeling uncertain about pricing, I think, that's all you've got? Come on, bring it. And then another wave comes through. It's always right in my gut. It's a really bad feeling. And the more times I let this wave like come through me, the less intense it gets. And then it's like sitting in a meditation, but it's really focused actually on this thing and like drawing this feeling toward me. And then what I find is after, it's usually 5 minutes, then I sort of get up from my chair and I think about it, and it's discharged. Like that feeling's not there, and it's not because I did anything about it, but I actually let myself feel it, and I think it's just like any other emotion, like your body has to process it, and once you've processed it, it's taken the charge out of it. So that's one approach. And then the opposite approach is more sort of my Yankee upbringing, like ignore it, is something that's also sort of effective. And we say it to our kids, which doesn't make us popular, but like, well, we often say to them, if they're doing something they really don't want to do, we always go, well, if you can't get out of it, get into it. But same thing, fake it till you make it. And I remembered we had this terrible workout we had to do in college. I played lacrosse, and our strength and conditioning and fitness program all through the fall and winter led up to this one workout that was doing something, I think it was 25 220-yard sprints. So 220 is like 35 to 45 seconds, and it's like just short enough that you can really push the whole time, but it's just long enough that you want to barf after each one. And to do 25 of them, it's like all of us would be filled with dread for weeks ahead of time. And then I remember in my junior year, suddenly I was like, you know what? I'm going to pretend I'm not in any pain at all. And it was incredible, because I remember I ran the first one, second one, third. Everyone at this point is like, steeling themselves for the next one. You get sort of a 2-to-1 break, rest to work ratio. And that one year, it just suddenly occurred to me. I was like, oh, I'm feeling no pain at all. And it was like a physical, keeping my shoulders up, breathing really slowly, smiling, asking, how you doing? That one, you were fast on that one. Keeping my voice really calm. And what it did was it was incredible. it like took all the anxiety and stress out of this thing. There was still the fatigue and the work, but my gosh, it had never been easier. And now I really tap into that with physical challenges, where I always think about it when I get hurt. My kids think it's funny because I'll pound my thumb with a hammer or something, and then I like them to see it. I'll be like, that not, I don't do it on purpose, but like, that really hurts. And my 11-year-old recently, he goes, I had cut myself with a knife, and he goes, why aren't you crying? And I was like, well, I have the feeling, and the feeling is really intense, but it's not, like, it's just a feeling, it's separate from me. And if I if I sort of focus on the feeling and take away the fear and the anxiety, well, then it's just a feeling. So that's another approach that I've actually tried it with like the mundane tasks of mail and checks and all of that. Like, let me just pretend this is no big deal. Like, I'm someone who just deposits checks when they come in. And I haven't gotten there yet. So I'm good. I'll report back. But that's one of the plans for 2021. And really bringing a lightness of spirit to this thing that maybe you dread and you're overwhelmed by. And then finally, just 5 minutes. Like, make the smallest. You guys have read about this. This is in a whole bunch of books. But make the smallest commitment you can. With mail, that was how I got started in December. I was like, you know what? I'm going to open 2 pieces of mail today. You saw that pile. But there really is something rewarding once you start going. And so that's the other one. I think that's it. Oh, gosh. Oh, no, that must be yours. I was like, I didn't put that slide there. So that's the idea. I'm going to report back at the end of 2021. I'll send you guys a picture of my mail pile. Hopefully it will be very small and manageable. And looking forward to hear about the rest of this.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
She had fair warning. I have no sense of direction. And I let her know I get lost all the time in the woods.
Totally committed to your opinion. It's so confusing.
So, I'm just thinking right now, I'm not writing Lauren a thank you note. That's not going to be my next move on this one. We came up with some other good things in the woods too, so we should follow up on that at some point. So as we get ready for Ramsey to come on, I want to just acknowledge some people who just did some phenomenal things during boot camp. And it was here? Oh, we went backwards, that's why. Okay, let me see what's happening. All right, here we go. I want to thank that we had 3 people who blacked out on the bingo. All right, and first of all, who tried new things, and they were so brave. Can we give it up for Virginia, who did her first TikTok video? Go, Virginia, that was great. All right, so we had somebody else do a video who every time I saw her, from the day boot camp started to the day this video took place, because it was on the bingo card, I'm dreading doing the video. I don't want to do the video. Oh, I'm going to have to do the video because I'm going to black out. And that was Drew Ann. I'm going to show you the video and then tell you what happened. It's not going to.
Home has never been more important. Whether you're looking to purchase a home or sell your current home, you need a seasoned real estate professional to navigate you through the ups, downs, and unexpected during the process. Put my 16 years of servicing Middlesex and Essex counties to work for you. Hiring the right agent does make all the difference.
All right, you know what happened? Within hours of posting this video, somebody said, I didn't know you worked in Essex County. Can you help me? Help my daughter find a place. And then the third person that blacked out, oh, it worked. It's working. Okay, it's almost working. Oh, it's very sad. Was Lauren O'Brien. Lauren O'Brien, did you see she did her Popeyes. She made her donation to housing families. She made sure she walked 5,000 steps a day. We weren't asking for big commitments. By the way, how many of you, I know I did, one of the first nights of boot camp, I looked down and it was 4,600 steps. I'd been on the Peloton and I'd done a yoga class. I didn't feel like I needed to exercise, but I'd committed to 5,000 steps. And damn it, that watch just brings you out. And I was like, I'm just running around the block. I got to get out there. So that's the thing about having accountability or having a system. I'm not promoting Apple Watches, but I will tell you, in 2020, I closed all 3 rings every day. And it was because I would look down and go, I have to go do something right now. Once you kind of make that commitment that you're going to do it, and it just becomes a habit, got to close it. I got to find some exercise minutes. I've got to find some, because I can walk a long time and not get any exercise unless I'm walking fast. So there are things out there. And then I just want to note somebody's doing something wicked cool. The last one I want to note was Michelle Joslin. Michelle Joslin, who, let's just say, anyone's been following her Facebook page, she's going through an awful lot right now, made a commitment to send 10 video text messages every day. Let me tell you, talk about connecting with people, quick little messages. This is just cute and adorable. Tell me this isn't going to help her business and you don't just love her more. Ready?
Nancy Grant, I have to tell you, I am thoroughly enjoying pictures of your grandkids on Facebook. Keep posting them. Congratulations, that baby is adorable. Congrats to you and Bob on your new grandson, and I love your grandkids. Hope the new year is off to a great start. It looks like it is. Happy New Year. Take care. Bye. Love you, Chickie.
So Soraya sent me a video that she was sending out to everyone, so it wasn't personalized. But I'm telling you, when you put yourself in front in a video, now the one that Michelle sent me a private message, she's going, first thing she did was, my hair's not quite right. And I'm going, don't. Just do it. Spend 20 seconds, 15 seconds reaching out to people. What a way to connect. So a little honorable mention to Sasha. I thought Sasha really did, she did a ton of the boot camp, and so did Mary. So they didn't quite black out. So I want to say to those who did black out, we were going to have a grand prize, and I was going to have to pick between the 3 of you. We're going to give the grand prize to all of you. There's no way I could pick between you 3 who worked so hard. Meanwhile, I'm giving a bingo extension because we'll talk about that later. So there are still prizes for those of you who didn't finish by today. And with that, I'm going to introduce Ramsey Fretz. He's always a great speaker at boot camp. Come on up, Rams. Rams works out of our South End office in Boston. And you're going to discuss today.
Well, I'm going to be talking about the 2020 and 2021 market and how it's going to be changing over the next 12 months. And Linda, thank you very much for having me today. Let's see if this starts off here. So first of all, the main difference between Linda and I is I immediately wanted to send Lauren a note to see how long it would take actually to get a response back. So that's a very simple change between us. But excuse me. The big piece I wanted to talk about is really the springboard. So 2020 was a fascinating year. I think that's probably the nicest way we can put that year. But it also was a very strong year for real estate. I think a lot of us didn't really expect that to happen. So before I talk about 2021, it's important to do a little bit of a review on kind of what happened in the last 12 months. So first thing I wanted to go over was the Dow Jones is in no way indicative of the actual market. When the market goes up and someone's still can't feed their kids, it doesn't really have that direct correlation, but it is a good way to tell the pulse of the general market for our country. And overall, the market went up 9.4%, which was quite surprising, especially when my portfolio went down 37% in March. So that was certainly a surprise year over year. And then what I think is a very interesting correlation is that the Massachusetts real estate market for single families went up a whopping 11.7%. And by the way, this is just for these counties listed. So I took the ones that are most of our market around the leading edge area. So 11.7% for the Massachusetts real estate market. 4.8% for condos. Obviously, makes a lot of sense that condos didn't go up as much. I live in a bigger brownstone in Beacon Hill. I had to go through 2 doors that other people touched today and wear a mask inside my building. Not exactly super desirable, and so we did see a little bit of a drop-off in the condo market compared to single families. But still plenty strong, 4.8% for any given year is great. And then multifamilies, I'm not sure, this is clicking twice, apologies, is 9.1%. But if you factor all those together, you are within 1 basis point of what happened in the stock market this year and what happened in the Massachusetts real estate market, which is just always fascinating data, in my opinion. And then there's an important piece here. It was the inflection point. So we all were hearing in February, we were all freaking out a little bit that there was this new virus in China, and it was kind of coming to the US. Little did we know it was already spreading around everywhere. Excuse me. And then all of a sudden I listed a place, I think March 26th, and no one showed up. And it was in Arlington, and it was pretty fairly priced. And we had the conversation with the sellers on, is this going to get worse? Is this going to get better? We're really not sure. And they said, you know what, this could get a lot worse. The stock market might continue to tank. Let's get this thing listed. It's time to sell. They needed to get rid of it. That sold, but it probably didn't do quite as well as it could have. And you can see during that period that a lot of listings that we would expect in the early spring market when there wasn't a lot of snow, we would have expected that peak. We would have expected more absorption, which actually didn't really start happening until June and July. But that whole first 3-month period was exceptionally slow compared to what we usually have. And I remember talking to Linda, also probably in late March, and saying, Linda, this could go until August. And I was correct, August 2021, so I was 1 year off, but that's okay. But really, those first 3 months were quite slow. And then all of a sudden, what happened? All the basic, reduce the curve and all of that in the first couple months started to go down. We realized this wasn't going anywhere. And we also realized that we could continue practicing real estate with the coronavirus still in play. And so what happened during that period is that we had a similar amount of listings, but all of a sudden the buyers came back. And they came back in full force. And so we had all those sellers who still weren't comfortable listing. So we still had a pretty even market for how much was on market. But we had an absorption rate jump of about 35%. So we went from a statewide average of about 30% absorption, which is, I would say, a seller's market by just a little bit, to all of a sudden a 65% on average absorption. And when you have a 65% on average absorption for an entire state, you're going to see monumental price shifts. And so when we're looking at an average of that about 9.5% price swing over the last 12 months, you're really looking at it at about 6 months. And what we've seen for the rest of this period is a continual drop in listings and a continual rise in interest, except for a couple little dips around the holiday season. And absorption finishing off the year at 107%. So 2020 was exceptionally strong. And what does that really mean for the following year is we're basically expecting a continual push for larger growth. But breaking that down, also year-over-year gains, this is what the country looks like. One of the, and I don't think the color shows up perfectly here, but one of the huge values of living in Massachusetts is that we usually outpace the market for growth in the real estate market, and we also don't seem to go down as much when there is a downturn. And so we're an extremely stable market, and you can see that we're one of only a few states that actually saw a plus $30,000 or more growth in their equity in their home year over year. So crystal ball. Everyone loves to know about kind of what's going to happen next. I do like to remind you all that we make a lot of predictions and we try to remember the ones that were right, but often we try to forget about the times we were wrong. So of course, no one really knows the answer of what's going to happen next. But the best way that I think you can start by looking at it is easy way to track it, interest rates. Interest rates have been at an all-time low. I predicted in 2018 that they were never going to go lower. I refinanced at a 3.69 and said, this is it. I'm going to hold this for 30 years. I'm telling all my clients, refi, it's never going to get better than this. Just refinance for a 2.75. So of course, now I'm saying again, this time I mean it. They're never going to go lower. We're done. So I think in general, the main reason for that is that treasury rates have really been moving up since the election, but mortgage rates have been going down. That is an inverse of what's supposed to happen. If you look at a long-term chart of treasury rates and mortgage rates, they move together. And sometimes mortgage rates lag a little bit, and that's what we're seeing right now. But they do move together. And so we should be expecting to see rates go up. Now, rates going up is still kind of silly. Rates going up is a 3.2, 3.3% expectation for 2021. That is an unbelievable rate structure. My first mortgage ever was a 4.5, and I thought that was impressive. And we are going to see that someday, but probably not for a very long time. But any time that we see a small rate change, it's going to change the ability for the buyer to purchase. And of course, buyers pay off of what the total price is, but more importantly, a lot of buyers pay off of what their monthly cost is. And if you're going to see a 40 basis points change, you're going to see a 2 to 3% change in what they can afford on a monthly cost, and that will relate to the actual sales price. Now, it doesn't mean that if interest rates go up, prices are going to go down. It might mean that prices just don't go up as quickly, which is probably actually quite healthy. So forecasts. Looking at 2021, let's look at some of the bigger players. NAR expects a 6% growth. Zelman, which is an analytics site, expects about 6% as well. Realtor.com, 5.7. CoreLogic, Freddie, Fannie Mac, and the I think it's the Mortgage Bankers Association is 2%. these are all from about a month ago, and thank you, Bill Butler, for sending me these charts. People actually have assumed that they were even going to be bigger than that, and I think there's been a very bullish market in the beginning of 2021. Redfin is expecting 5%, and the reason I want to include Zillow is expecting it to exceed 10% growth, but more importantly than that, they think that, not very good at this, 21.9% more homes will sell than in 2020. So what does that really mean? That means that they're expecting the market to be 20% larger and prices still to go up 10%. And that's really interesting because for the market to go up by a 20% larger market, that should actually soften demand because the supply-demand ratio changes. But even if there's 20% more selling or 22% more selling, they still think that prices are going to go up by 10% or more, which is quite impressive. We'll see if that happens. So, National Association of Home Builders, they do a monthly survey, but they've been doing it since 1985. I think this is a better pulse on the market than almost anything else. And the main reason for that is that for real estate agents, for all of us, if prices go up 6%, that's great. If they go down 2%, it's not great, but it doesn't really affect our bottom line that much. We don't really get paid off of if there's those small changes. We get paid on how much we sell, and if we have a small change in how much those things are worth, it doesn't have any true material impact on our market, and we're going to be able to weather that just fine. But if you're a home builder, you're basing your future off of what those prices are going to be, and you're building today for 6 months from now. And so what this survey does is it takes a look at what the single-family market is going to be like right now and in with 6 months, and are they feeling confident about that market, or are they feeling pessimistic about that market? December 2017, 74% of builders said that they're feeling confident about that market. 18, 56%. Remember, there was a stock market drop. We were getting a little worried that it was time for a little bit of a dip to happen. 19, 76% again. And then December 2020, a short while ago, 86% of builders said we have a positive outlook and we're optimistic for 6 months from now. It has never been that high. It has never broken 80. In 2008, it was 9%. And so certainly a hell of a swing, but we have the most optimistic builder market that we have ever had in the United States. Annual home appreciation, this is another reason why we probably won't have the same kind of dip we had with the Great Recession. And I know we all kind of have been waiting for 9 years of when it's going to happen again next, and it just doesn't seem to be. But this is a very interesting piece where all it really shows here is we're just not growing as quickly as we were right before the Great Recession. And so we're not seeing the same kind of bubble fervor, even though it feels like it, we're not getting those same kind of figures. Next piece on that is back in the, right around that, 2006, 2007, heading into a really terrible market, heading into the housing market crash and the stock market crash, we were already seeing months of inventory into the red. We were already seeing a period in time when there was more inventory than demand, and we were seeing absorption rates drop. We are so far away from that right now that we could have literally months of inventory change and still be in a seller's market. And for that reason alone, the market will probably not dip very quickly because that market is so much stronger right now than it was before. And then I think this is probably the most important piece out of anything, and we'll show why this is the case on the next slide. But 58.7% of all homes in America have at least 60% equity. People are sitting on a tremendous amount of cash in their properties. This is the main reason as well that as much as Mary, loves her business of short sales and foreclosures, which she's very good at, and auctioneers, she's probably not going to make that the core part of her business in the next couple of years because people have too much money in their homes. And even if they lose their jobs, even if they don't pay their mortgage, even if they go into forbearance, which is still a very scary thing for people, what is going to happen is they're going to sell instead of having to foreclose, instead of having to go into short sale, because there is enough equity there. And it's a pretty impressive amount. And then why is there so much equity in their homes? Because people are being reasonable, because people are planning for their future, and because people aren't spending everything that they have. If you look at the total amount of equity cashed out the 3 years prior to the Great Recession, it was almost $1 trillion, $824 billion. I'll round up quite a bit. Right now, though, in the last 3 years, $247 billion. We're not buying the secondary homes as much. We're not over-leveraging ourselves. We're not buying the watches. We're not getting the sports car. We're not cashing out of our homes. We're keeping the equity in them, which means that we have a more predictable future and a better housing market coming up. So what do we do with this information? We're talking a lot about all these wonderful things that's happening in the real estate market, but frankly, it's probably not going to make you a lot more cash very quickly. And so I'm going to leave you with a couple simple things. It is not complex. I love to hear when Lauren's talking about how all the people on her list that she's connecting with. I love to hear the 15-second videos to all your clients. That really is the answer. I'm sorry that there is no special trick that's going to happen today. It's client outreach and it's equity checkups. I made the goal of every single one of my past clients I would connect with between January and February, as I sit usually at home and there's not that much to do anyways. We're preparing for the spring market. I make the goal that I know Bill Butler's doing the same thing. We want to have a 15-minute call or Zoom to discuss the equity in your home, what your current interest rate is. Can you refinance? Is there anything else that we can help with? Because those are the pieces right now that are showing value to our clients, and that's why they're starting to refer. My big win last week was I had a client who had a 90% loan, and then they actually had a secondary loan on the property. But their housing, the price of the house had gone up so much, they were actually able to refinance, go to one primary, have 20% equity. They save $780 a month. Now, that client becomes an advocate for me, not because I did anything real estate-wise, it's because I gave them 15 minutes, said where their equity is, and connected with my lender. And by the way, I'm sure that lender now appreciates me more than he did 2 weeks ago. And the last piece is, are your clients living in their dream home? This is a question that Bill Butler has been asking to his sphere quite a bit. I've started to implement it. It doesn't have to be this question. It just has to be something that you're asking your sphere and your past clients to connect with them. And the really funny thing is the reason that Bill recommended I put this up here today is he's getting more responses by people when he says, are you in your dream home, than anything else. Because it immediately announces what they don't like about their house. You know, it's the same thing that Linda always asks, you know, on the scale of 1 to 10, what is your house worth? Well, if it's a 7, what can we make it to, you know, what's the quality of your home? If most people answer a 7, and she always says, well, how do you make it a 10? And they list all the terrible things about their home. So Bill is just engaging with his clients to see how we can help next, how we can help them transition to the next space, or how we can help them make that house even more special. And then the last piece that I really love to finish with is that we're all really feeling very, very, very bullish right now. I think as a country we're feeling bullish. We also have to remind ourselves that we have new variants of a virus that was supposed to be a couple weeks long in the very beginning, and we're heading into a full year of it, and it's not going to be ending anytime soon. Somehow the stock market went up. Somehow our market went up by 10% for real estate. And so I just wanted to finish with a couple other really, really interesting predictions right before collapses. And so Irving Fisher, October 1929, stocks, and by the way, he was the chief economist of the day. Stocks have reached a permanently high plateau. It took another 27 years to reach that number again a few weeks later. Y2K. We spent a lot of billions on making sure that we changed, what was it, the 00 at the very end? I think we had an uncle, Linda, who bought guns and gold during that period. Didn't quite work out that way. Microsoft, I'm going to beat up on them twice. First one, no chance the iPhone will get market share. No chance at all the first year. I think they sold 126 million. Second one, the potential for the world market of copy machines is 5,000 at most. Not quite on the T there. And then fourth, Jim Cramer, Mad Money. If you ever watch him, I don't remember what channel he's on, but he's on every single night telling you how to invest and everything else. Bear Stearns is fine. Do not take your money out. $62 to $2 within 5 days of saying that. That was the leader of the stock market crash. And then the last one, David, who was the former NAR chief economist, wrote, and by the way, you can still buy this book on Amazon for $4.99, Why the Real Estate Boom Will Not Bust and How You Can Profit From It, 2006. So I will leave you with that. Thank you very much for the time today, Linda. And yeah, I think we're going to have a prosperous year, but at the same time, we should probably make sure that we're not falling into this category as well. Thank you.
Ramsey, as always, that was absolutely terrific. Great talking points for your conversations, right? Things you can talk about. And we'll put up some of the slides that we think are really salient into the Facebook group. I'm going to go over something today that I have done in the past because I think it works with conversations. And I think I've done it in boot camp twice, and this is going to be the third time. I've never done anything 3 times, but I'm doing it today because I feel like I keep presenting it to everyone, but no one's picking up what I'm putting down, and they're great conversational tips. So with that, remember you're at choice. You have choice all the time. Be a powerful observer of the choices you have available to you. And I'm going to give you a lot of choices. Now, this is a class I usually give in an hour and a half, and we're going to do this in 20 minutes. But it's, it's from exactly what to say. There are things in our brain that when you open a conversation, you open minds, that allows people to think and make better decisions. I'm going to put all of these in the Facebook, every one of these slides. I thought, and we're going to have a PDF for you, and I want you to study it. Because when you're with clients, these are the kind of things that will help you be more effective. So, as I see it, you have 3 options. I want you all to always, always remember that people want options. They do not want to be told what to do. What they want is to be the one that decides what to do. Guide them. When they say to you, what should I do? Do not tell them what they should do. Respond. You have 3 options. It makes them feel good when they pick the one, and usually they're going to pick the one you want because you've given them context. It's all about context again. But you can't expect people to come up with and think the way you are. You're the experienced agent. You're the one that understands the consequences of certain decisions. So it's your responsibility to let people know what the consequences of their decisions are. So when the appraisal goes poorly, you can say, hey, you have 3 options. You could pay for another appraisal, or you could try to negotiate with the seller, or you can increase your down payment to make the bank happy. What would you like to do? Of the 3, which works best for you? Or, as I see it, you have 3 options. You can negotiate with the buyer and move, if you're the seller, right? You can try and find a new buyer if you don't want to work with this buyer. Or you can take your house off the market and stay. Way better than saying, it's totally legitimate, the roof issue, I know it's not actively leaking. Well, there is a stain in the back bedroom wall, and it's been fine for you. Maybe that is just an ice dam. Instead of doing all that fancy dancing, just say, this is where we're at. I can help you get an estimate. There's all kinds of things you can do. Give people options. So the next thing of the 3, which works best for you? Next, I'm guessing. When do you say I'm guessing? You say I'm guessing when you're really frustrated and people aren't doing what you want. You have to be graceful and give them an out. Give them a graceful way to hold their head up high. You need to preserve people's dignity when things aren't going well and you're not getting what you want. Otherwise, you've backed them into a corner. So if someone has not responded to you, you'd say, I'm guessing you haven't had a chance to speak with your wife yet, or you haven't had a chance to review the documents, or you haven't gotten around to making a decision yet. I'm just guessing. It's just a nice entryway. Yeah, that is exactly what's going on. I've given you, instead of you didn't get back to me, why aren't the documents signed? Not the way to go. The other thing is that we like people who are like us. If someone walks in and they're wearing the kind of shoes you wear, or an outfit you like, or if they're listening to music that you like, or they're driving a car like you have, or you learn that they're Italian like you instantly like them better, right? Have you ever been on vacation and made these great friends that in a bar or wherever you were, you get to talking to them? They're not people you talk about, but immediately you found common ground. And when you find common ground, you're going to be much more receptive to ideas and doing things. So if you open sentences with, I bet you're a lot like me. All of a sudden, we're in this together. So you're a busy person always juggling to get things done, right? I bet you're a bit like me. You hate to pay over asking, but know that if you don't, someone else will. I bet you're a bit like me. You can do the work yourself, but also it will get done better and faster if you hire someone to do it. I bet you're a bit like me. It's just a nice way to open the door. And by the way, human nature, as Lauren talked about, we're all procrastinating, we're all trying to get things done, we're trying to move people to get things done. That's what today's about. If and then. You were all raised with if and then. This is how you were raised. You were raised, if you don't eat all your dinner, then you won't get dessert. If you don't study hard in school, then you won't get into college, the college you want to attend, right? If you don't lower your price, then your house will continue to languish on the market and you'll get less than you deserve. The reason it works is because we are trained from birth that if you say if and then it's inevitable. Then that's what's going to happen, right? Even if that's not true, that is how your brain works. So if you don't lower your price, then your house will languish and it becomes a truth. Next. Oh, sorry. We are having, okay, last. If we don't figure out a way to negotiate with the seller on home inspection items here, then we're going to have to find another house where we have to negotiate different home inspection items. Every house has issues. If and then. Next, all this anxiety, right? So how do you address anxiety? How do you help people diffuse it? That's a really important skill, right? So one way would be to acknowledge their anxiety. Easy. Hey, you're bound to be nervous right now, right? You've never gotten a mortgage before. You've never bought a house before. You've never listed and sold a house before. I know you don't know what to do right now, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you through the process and overcome all the hurdles along the way. People need constant reassurance. Take the time. They need to know you know what you're doing and that you're on it. And sometimes we know what we're doing and we don't tell them that. So they're at home stewing, wondering. Uncertainty is a terrible thing. And then you're not meeting their expectations. And then finally, my favorite one from my sister, who's the nurse. When it's time to worry, we'll worry together, right? Okay, the next one is most people. Just like people like to be like you, they also like to be like most people. I think the study was when you were trying to get people to, in hotels, to reuse their towel. They tried every angle. They held signs about the environment, about the extra cost of the room, etc. No. The one sign that worked was most people decide to reuse their towel. And then all of a sudden, towel reuse went way up. People kind of like to identify with the group. We all think we're fierce individuals. We don't want to admit for a minute that we're like everyone else, but we all run in herds. It's just like, wouldn't it have been so smart? Doesn't everybody here wish they bought a house in 2009? But nobody would buy a house in 2009. And because no one else was doing it, it seemed like a bad idea. When in fact, that was the smartest time in the last 20 years to buy a house. So most people get a dumpster and some strong backs, strong guys, to empty their basement of the things they can't give away. If most people do that, maybe I'll do that too. Most people work with Use My Lender. That's very effective because, by the way, we all know that the single biggest problem in any transaction is some stray lender. When people work with, we all know several really good lenders. Pick any of these people, but please don't go off the range. When people do, that's when there are problems. Most people who take my advice on preparing a home for market are thrilled with the results. Easy to say. These are things that just, will help get people to take your advice. Okay, thinking quickly, right? So when I say that, thinking quickly, everybody wants you to give an answer right away. And I think the best thing I've heard is Chris Voss on Never Split the Difference talks about your late night DJ voice. When things are going wrong, and Lauren alluded to it earlier, she just gets calm. It's time to slow down. You're going to be so much more effective. Be more collaborative with them. Don't be a bossy pants. Nobody likes a bossy pants. I know, I'm one. I have to remind myself all the time not to be a bossy pants. When you work, let's fix this together. Let's work this together. And then as we said in the first boot camp, every problem probably has a solution if you just sit and think about it long enough. Next, I know it seems awkward when you have to deliver bad news. The best thing you could do is say the good news or what's great here. So remember that when you've got to deliver some bad news, start with the good news is that we know that that what we're doing now is not working. So we need to go to plan B and paint and reduce the price. Right? That's great. If we give them a closing cost credit of $4,500, your house will be sold. That's a great way to say it. We know they do not want to give a closing cost credit. They don't want a dime to go. But this is great news. Now we're done. Your house is sold. We can move on. The good news is that although we had to cancel the open house because of the nor'easter, it looks so good online, the buyers will be home drooling over it until they can get in. Nobody wants to call. I remember holding open houses when all of a sudden they were knee-deep water in like 96 or some of those big storms. People got a chance to see them. The good news is you know how bad it is, the worse it's going to be. Never, ever ask. This is the mistake we all make. People want to say, what do you want to do next? No. You need to seize control. You must always give them a direction. You are their leader. What happens next is, has anyone noticed that all of our letters that go throughout the transaction, they're named the what's next letters for your client. Here's where we're at the transaction, and here's what's next. Tomorrow's the home inspection. What's next is, hey, make sure there's a clear path to the heating system. Make sure you leave a garage door opener. This is what's going to happen. And by the way, it's going to drive you crazy. They might be there too long. And then after the home inspection, they're likely to want to bring specialists back. And this is going to drive you crazy. Please know that's normal. This is what's next. The more you use all of these tools that we've given you to communicate highly, the more effective you're going to be. It's your responsibility to lead the conversation. Okay, always remain in control. Remember, the person asking the questions is in control. You don't want to be back on your heels answering their questions. If you need to get them a certain direction, use that analysis, just like a good therapist. Think of objections as questions and ask a question in return. If why are you going to price it so low? Your response might be something like, why do you think it needs to be higher? Keep it going, but stay in control with questions. Objections. This is what you're going to hear. It's the wrong time. I want to look at more homes. I need to speak to someone else before I can make a decision. We hear that all the time. So how do you respond to that? Sorry about this. What do you do? What do you mean by that? If you answer the objections with, what do you mean by that? You need to understand what's going on behind the objection. Dig deep. It's going to help a lot. The client will fill in the gaps. Try not to prejudge. You might learn a lot. Now you can either help or at least you'll understand. Next. Only appropriate details to your audience. We have seen it over and over again. I know when I talk to agents, first of all, I'm just going to beg all of you, when you call me with your story, I know you could tell the story for half an hour. I only need the salient details of what the problem is. People always want to give the background. And your clients are the same way. They don't want excuses. Don't want to. Now, if they are curious, they will ask. And you can provide the background information. But we often spend way too much time. I want to say one thing about being a busier agent when you're selling a lot. You value your time so much that you're not prone to talking too much because you need to move on to the next conversation. But that's really all your clients need. Help them. Besides, when you give extraneous information and you haven't given enough background on things, they start to think and make up stories about that extraneous information or about that buyer client that can sabotage you later. Make sure you just stick to what people need to know because you're going to create doubts otherwise. Be careful about what you want to reveal and always disclose. So I was talking to one of our newer agents last night who started to show property, and I talked about Ann Mann at an open house, who every time you walk into one of Ann Mann's open houses, the first thing she does to a buyer is she tells you what's wrong with the house. I just want to let you know. So do keep in mind that authenticity, the saying what's wrong about yourself, a little self-deprecating. I mean, how many people just love Lauren right now because, you think she's this rock star agent. How could she not open her mail? How could she, possibly not be on top of cashing those checks? Like, how could that happen? We're all normal. It just makes you love her more. Nobody's. Matter of fact, aren't you inherently terribly suspicious of people who are so damn perfect? Right? You are. They don't feel real. So disclosure does build trust. Next. What does your audience want to know? And more importantly, what do they not want to know? Some of you love to explain every single form for the listing, line by line, to your clients. They don't care. They don't want to. Those who do will ask. Some of you go on a CMA and you could spend a half an hour going through every comp and explaining that this one had an extra bathroom and this one didn't. For the most part, what you need to do is show up with all of the comps and say, I've studied this meticulously. I know about every house and how it compares to yours. And at the end of the day, this is where we come out. Our price range is X, and this is where you're going to fall. You're going to fall somewhere in here. And if you want to know why, or if you want to talk about a couple of these particular comps, I'd love to do it. But they really don't want to go through the whole thing with you. That was your job. Tell them what you're not going to tell them. I've done all this work. If you want it later, fine. So some people will pay you a boatload of cash to not tell them everything that's on your mind. Okay, as we kind of start to wind down in boot camp, remember there are two types of people in this world. I love this one. So people who create problems and people who solve problems. I've been living by that mantra for a long time. Which category are you in? And by the way, this is your chance to be in the category you want to be in if you're not there. Some people just don't look at things positively and don't feel like they can fix it. There are those who attend seminars and do nothing with the information, and those who implement and see results right away. Just saying. Oh, sorry. There are those, I don't know why that's, I apologize. There are those who resist lightly, those who resist change in favor of nostalgia, and those who move with the times and create a better future. So, I didn't have time to show you anything. David Knox does a kick-ass presentation. Are you a messenger or a negotiator? He did it for the New Hampshire Association of Realtors. We're going to post it on our Facebook page. It's an hour long. It is worth watching. Next, boot camp bingo. Time is not up. Boot camp bingo wasn't some competitive race that was designed so you could win a Yeti or some, a marketing campaign or videos. It was designed because this is a playbook for your life. It's not too late. I'm going to extend boot camp bingo. Now, nobody else can, if you black out, nobody else is going to get the big video the three, Virginia and Drew Ann and Lauren are going to get. But some of you are new to real estate and you didn't try to black out. You didn't practice your listing presentation. You didn't practice your buyer presentation. You didn't do pop-bys and go visit people. You didn't write notes. I'm concerned for you. By the way, I want to note that the people who did a lot of bingo are busy people who are already highly successful. They found the time. They walked in the woods despite the fact that they've got a million deals going. They found time to take care of themselves. We talked about burnout in the first class. Almost everyone can make it work, right? Who didn't have time to hug somebody? To spend an hour sitting quietly. As Lauren said, it was all three. I had ideas, I was kind of inspired, I relaxed a little bit, and I was crawling out of my skin. You know, all of those things are true. But everything on this list was really thought out to help you be a healthier person, a better real estate agent, and build your community. Okay, I'm going to be the first one to admit, last night we did our Zoom dance party. And I was like, at quarter of, I was still in my yoga pants, slippers, and the little white sweater I'd been wearing yesterday. I did not look ready for a big Zoom dance party. And then Mary comes running downstairs, trying to button her black leather pants from 1986. And there's no way that she was going to sit. And she's in a sparkly gold top, and she's looking for big earrings and bright red lipstick. And I thought, oh my God, you know, I forgot it was supposed to be fun. And the next thing you know, Megan and Bianca have got their Zoom screen up, and they're dressed up. She's dressed like a big cat, I think. I'm not quite sure what you were supposed to be there, but it was some kind of cute fuzzy animal. And we got a panda over there. And those two can dance. Megan in particular has a history with dance that she stops people on dance floors. By the time the third song was up, we were all sweating. We were having a great time. We were laughing really hard. And I thought, the Zoom dance party was for us to be together. It was so we could collaboratively hang out and laugh. Those walks in the woods, was it the scavenger hunt? Yes, some of you, we have a couple of competitive people in real estate, as you've noticed. But let's face it, it was all the walks along the way that were just so magnificent. That's what this was about. You have time to take care of yourself. And I desperately want you to reach out to someone who lives alone, or make a donation and add people to your database, right? All these things are important to you. So you got 30 days. What we have left are, if you're going to bingo, you have to let Bianca know. We're going to leave the Yetis in a place for you, and you can pick them up. So it's not too late to bingo. The Four Corners, I am prepared, if you do the Four Corners, to do the marketing campaign for you. It's 250 postcards. However you want to send them out. Get the Four Corners done. If you still black out, I will still do a video with you. You're not going to get the big prize, but let's do something fun, because that's what it's all about. And as we go into the final slides, I have a lot of people to thank for boot camp. Christine, George, thank you so much for all your guidance in marketing and putting this together. Becca, for the website design that you've done. Rose, who does all our slides. When there's an ugly slide, I can tell you that's the one I did after Rose did them for me. Amanda, our creative director, has set so much direction, also helped with all the promotion of boot camp. Grace, who solved our technical challenges. Did you notice that it went off without a hitch? Third time's a charm. Thank you very much, Grace, for coming in early. I want to say Megan. Megan picked all the playlist and got involved and made the dance party fabulous last night. Courtney, you did an amazing job with the scavenger hunt. We had a lot of fun. George, for sponsoring boot camp this year. George Kustos of Cross Country Mortgage and his team. We thank you all. Chris Callahan, who sponsored Elaine Howley. Thank you for doing that. I missed it because I can't see, but did you notice that Chris Callahan was in her goggles and swimming cap last week? Just, to support and be a little bit fun. Isn't that why we're here all together? And of course, my Bianca. I know your mother thinks you're her Bianca, but you're my Bianca. You have been working round the clock, morning, noon, and night since the end of December, and I just thank you immensely for all your help. Lastly, we're going to end that leading edge. We are out front and always behind you. And can I add, we've thought of it all, so you don't have to. And let's end on this quote that we all saw this week that I think is a great way to end boot camp. This is my friend Catherine Clark with Amanda Gorman. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew. That even as we hurt, we hoped. That even as we tired, we tried. That we'll forever be tied together victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. So on that note, I want to thank all the boot campers for joining me. It was a lot of fun for me. I think we're going to have a whole new way of doing boot camp in person next year as a result of some of the events that we did. Thank you all. Make it a great year. And I want to hear all about the bingo. Take care.